It is time to talk about the variables that surround the quarterback position, and specifically, Matthew Stafford. Let's do it. What's going on YouTube? This is your boy Mr. Micro Mike, and I wanted to drop a in-depth analysis to everything that surrounds the quarterback position when it comes to the offensive line, when it comes to defense, when it comes to pressures and sacks. How is it taking place when it comes to the Detroit Lions, specifically Matthew Stafford, compared to the NFL, as well as compared to the NFC North? We have heard throughout the years that Matthew Stafford has not had a running game, a quality defense, offensive line, everything that goes around and surrounds Matthew Stafford. So I wanted to see if this is a true or a false narrative. And so I specifically jumped into all the statistics to me that were vital that surround the quarterback position. And I used ESPN as a reference. So when I spit these numbers out, go ahead and check ESPN if you don't believe what I got the information from. With that said, let's begin. Now, the first statistic that I really want to talk about when it comes to the quarterback position that I believe is very vital to having a success of a quarterback when it comes to any team in the NFL is offensive line pressure. Now, as we can see here, I ranked the worst to best when it comes to the NFC North, as well when it comes to the rankings of Matthew Stafford compared to the NFL. So, as you can see, in 2018, the Minnesota Vikings offensive line was ranked 29 out of 32, getting pressure on the quarterback. That is very bad. They were the third worst in the NFL. And as you can tell, that really affects the quarterback position. Now, in the second to worst was the Detroit Lions, 16 out of 32. They were halfway through the NFL when it comes to offensive line pressure to the quarterback. As you can see, that is not very good as well. Now, the Packers ranked 13 out of 32, and the Bears had a whopping 2 out of 32. They were the second best in the NFL. Now, this is very important when we talk about the quarterback position because the offensive line pressure, it forces the quarterback to either throw the ball early or make an errant throw or to make a mistake and not have a clean pocket, etc. So it's important that we understand how this affects the quarterback and how it specifically affects Matthew Stafford. Now, compared to the NFL, again, he was midway through when it comes to our offensive line pressures. That means our offensive line was literally 50% when it comes to the NFL, the average. So they weren't the absolute worst, but they weren't the absolute best. So when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, they were one of the worst in all of the NFL, and the Packers were better than average, and the Chicago Bears were absolutely the second best in the NFL. And you can tell how this definitely did affect the season last year because, again, the Bears won the NFC North, and this does have variables when it comes to the quarterback position and how it affects the game. It is very important. So here you can see the Lions rank third worst in the NFC North. Now, we will jump into sacks when it comes to sacks allowed to the quarterback position when it comes to the NFC North as well as the NFL in relation to Matthew Stafford. If the offensive line is giving up a lot of sacks, that means that success rate of the quarterback is much less than a team that does not allow sacks. We all know this. This is simple mathematics. This is simple NFL. This is very easy to understand. Now, in the NFC North, the Packers actually ranked second worst in the NFL at 30. Now, as you can see, the Packers ranked really bad as they ranked 30 out of 32. So their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, received many sacks in the NFC North as well as the NFL. They were ranked worst in the NFC North. Now, it's not too much great when it comes to the Lions because they ranked with 17 out of 32 teams. They were a little worse than average, making the Lions and Matthew Stafford receive more pressure than the average NFL team and the third worst in the NFC North. Again, that affects how the quarterback can make a play, getting hit, getting injured, etc. Now the Minnesota Vikings were right below the Lions at mid-round with 16 out of 32, and Bears again topped the best of the NFC North with 9 out of 32. Obviously, again, this stat does show how it had affected the NFC North, as the Chicago Bears won the NFC North and Minnesota took second, and Packers and Lions bottomed out. Next, we're going to go into specifically all-around offensive line rankings. Now, this is very important when it comes to the quarterback position. If your offensive line is not good, the quarterback has less of an ability to do well in a game and less of a chance to win games, period. Now, the Lions ranked dead last in the NFC North, 25th out of 32 teams. Obviously, that affected Matthew Stafford, period. That is a pure fact. Having the worst offensive line in the NFC North is not a good stat to have, and it affected our game, it affected the run game, and it definitely affected Matthew Stafford. Having a bad offensive line really affects everything when it comes to the ability of a quarterback to make any play. Now, Minnesota was 16 out of 32, and the Bears were 15 out of 32, a little above average. And again, that just shows you having a well offensive line helps teams out big league. The Green Bay Packers was the best in the NFC North with 13 out of 32. Though 16, 15, and 13 when it comes to the Vikings, Bears, and Packers are fairly average, we clearly had a big negative when it comes to the offensive line compared to all the other teams in the NFC North. We had the absolute worst. Another statistic that is very, very vital when it comes to the ability of an offense to operate, the ability of a quarterback to have more success, is the run game. Now, rushing is so important to have success on offense and for the quarterback to have success. If you do not have a run game, that is so much more pressure on the quarterback, and defenses simply will play the pass. Now, when it comes to rushing in the NFC North, dead last was the Minnesota Vikings, where they ranked 30 out of 32. They did not have a running game last year, and statistics show that. Now, again, third worst in the NFC North, we were 23 out of 32 when it comes to rushing the football, and that was last year. We know through years past that the Lions' rushing game was just straight hot garbage. But last year, we did not again have a running game. We had a below average running game. And having the third worst in the NFC North really hurts our ability to win the NFC North. Packers just above us with 22 out of 32, and again, it affected their season as well, as they didn't do great. And the Chicago Bears, again, atop of the stat, ranking 11 out of 32, best in the NFC North. So it is very important that you can run the football. These stats don't lie. These facts do not lie. Another giant factor when it comes to the success of a quarterback is how well the defense plays. The success of the offense is very dependent on defense, yin and yang. You cannot have one without the other. One success breeds to the other success. Now, when it comes to the NFC North, we actually had a fairly well defense in all teams in the NFC North. Packers ranked 18 out of 32, dead last in the NFC North, below average compared to the NFL, and it showed. Now, the Detroit Lions ranked 10 out of 32 when it comes to total defense in the NFL. We are a top 10 defense. Still, we ranked third in the NFC North, another bottom statistic dweller in the NFC North. We need to do better. Now, when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, they were a very well defense with 4 out of 32, and the Chicago Bears round up the top with 3 out of 32, best in the NFC North. Now, again, as you can tell, it is very important to have a quality defense. If the defense is not doing well, that means the Matthew Stafford has to constantly throw the football and put up points. That means the quarterback must stay on offense because the defense is doing bad. We have seen through years past, through many teams, throughout the NFL, if you do not have a defense, you do not have a winning franchise. And we ranked third out of the NFC North. However, though, we were an above average defense with a top 10. I'm going to talk about the overall quarterback rating when it comes to ESPN. Now, as you see here, all the stats I went over, basically the Lions was either third or last in pretty much every statistic surrounding the quarterback position, whether it comes to pressures, sacks, rushing, and defense. Now we're going to look at the quarterback rankings when it comes to the NFC North per ESPN. The Bears, Mitchell Trubisky ranked 20 out of 32. So that means he was a far below average quarterback. Now, basically the Bears had nearly every best stat surrounding the quarterback position, first in many of those categories. Yet, their quarterback was far below average. That is a not good sign when it comes to the quarterback position. That means he is a below average quarterback. He had every advantage in the NFC North, yet he still ranked the worst out of quarterback rankings. That is a big red flag. Now, the Detroit Lions, Matthew Stafford ranked 16 out of 32. Of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, starting quarterbacks, he ranked literally average, dead in the middle of the quarterback position. Now, when we've seen in the NFC North, in the stats I just went over, we literally had a disadvantage in nearly every single category. If we were not the worst, we were the second worst in all statistics when it comes to the NFC North, and we ranked fairly below average in all the rankings in the NFL with variables surrounding the quarterback position. Yet, Matthew Stafford ranked 16 out of 32. Think about this, folks. He had every disadvantage, yet he still ranked as an average quarterback. It should be flopped. It should not be that Mitchell Trubisky is the worst quarterback. It should be Matthew Stafford according to all the variables that surround him. So why is Matthew Stafford ranked 16 out of 32? That is very interesting. Now you go to the Minnesota Vikings. They had 10 out of 32 when it comes to Kirk Cousins. They had a mixed variables, as it was sometimes they had the worst, sometimes they had fairly well. So that very much shows when it comes to rank 10 out of 32. Now, when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers ranked 6 out of 32. Obviously, there was a lot of disadvantages when it comes to the Packers surrounding the quarterback position, and that just tells you the talent of Aaron Rodgers and why he is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Why I do believe Aaron Rodgers takes a step back is simply because due to injury. Injury and age affects a player. That, to me, is somewhat common sense. If the player is injured and he cannot play the game, it hurts the team. And so when I'm looking at for the next season is Aaron Rodgers will probably get hurt, in my opinion. And his age and the ability of having injuries like he does affects the game and affects the team. If your quarterback cannot start, obviously it hurts the whole team. Now, when it comes to Matthew Stafford, he has been injured and he has been starting for years now with being out on an injury. That is very good. So when it comes to the promising, when it comes to injury, we know Matthew Stafford can do the absolute best he can to deal with pain. He obviously was injured last year and it affected his game, but still got out there on the field and play. Well, as we know, Matthew Stafford is an Iron Man. A variable that I'm not going to throw on statistics is the KFC variable. Literally, KFC, our offensive coordinator for the last couple of years, was one of the worst, if not the worst, offensive coordinators in Lions history, in the NFL last year, and for times to come. The plays were absolutely predictable. The plays were absolutely horrendous. And it was run, pass, punt. Having an offensive coordinator that was that dreadful definitely, absolutely 100% affected our offense and Matthew Stafford himself. With removing him from the position offensive coordinator and putting Darrell Bevell in, Matthew Stafford's stats will get better. His percentages will go up, and the Lions, when it comes to variables around the quarterback position, will probably not be last or third last in the NFC North like it has been last year in 2018. So in conclusion, when it comes to Matthew Stafford, as you've seen through the stats that I just shown you, the variables that surround the quarterback position, Matthew Stafford nearly had every disadvantage when it comes to the NFC North and had a lot of below rankings when it comes to the NFL overall. When it comes to offensive line pressures, offensive line sacks, defense, every category that is major when it surrounds the quarterback position. It is true he has had bad variables that surround him, and that hurt his production last year and throughout the years. However, he should have been a lot worse than what he was. He should have been bottom half of the NFL, not mid-range. Chicago Bears Mitchell Trubisky had nearly every advantage, yet he is a bottom-range quarterback compared to all the variables that surrounded him. That is something I wanted to focus on and show you guys that, folks, we have to look at everything when it comes to the quarterback position, all the variables that surround it. The offensive line pressure, the offensive line sacks, the running game, the ability to have a quality offensive coordinator, and schemes that trick defenses. We have not had that, and especially in 2018, and it affected the offense, and it specifically affected Matthew Stafford. However, his ability to be a well-rounded quarterback made it so he was not as bad as he should have been per all the variables that surrounded him. Folks, we got to let this thing play out and let this offense, let our running game work. Let our new offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, put in new schemes that actually work in the NFL. We have to have a defense that is top range in the NFC North. We have to have every variable move up from bottom to the top. So we, the Detroit Lions, us as fans, can watch this team go and take the NFC North for the 2019 and 20 season. With that said, folks, if you have not subscribed by now to my channel and you've not hit that bell, please do so because I'm a cool guy. With that said, folks, adios.